Please be seated. The court is now back in session. I will hand over the floor to the defense counsel for Ian Sari to continue his line of questioning.
Honors, and good afternoon to everyone in and around the courtroom again. And good afternoon, sir. Let's talk about your appointment to the MFA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. You've told us that it was Pong who appointed you to that position. Do you recall telling us that?
Yes, I do. Indeed, Pong appointed me to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your qualifications for the position that you ultimately had at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And to do that, let's talk a little bit about your education. As I understand it, you had some schooling, but you failed some exams. Could you please tell us how many years of school years did you actually complete?
I completed the so-called third class level.
For those of us who come from different school systems, could you please tell us how many years of school did you actually complete?
To my calculation, it was about 13 years of schooling. Oh no, it was about 10 years of schooling.
All right. And you indicated that you had taken one exam, but you had failed it, and therefore you could not go any higher. Am I correct?
Yes, you are.
Now, aside from that education, did you have any other sort of education or training?
Aside from the formal schooling, I attended other trainings. The trainers did not reveal his identity. They used their pseudonyms. They provided us with materials, including books. We read storybooks, and at that time I enjoyed reading Chinese stories, and we read and we watch films, particularly films relating to revolutionary movements. So that was the other trainings I undertook.
Had you worked prior to your appointment? Did you have any work experience in a government office?
Well, no, I never had any prior experience working with the government. I was a freelance worker.
And by freelance, as I understand it from your testimony, you did some construction work, you were a cyclo driver, and then later you were a combatant, a soldier. Does that cover the sum total of your work experience?
Yes, you're correct.
Now, before taking your position with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, did you get any sort of training or orientation on your position at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Upon assuming my role in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I was in charge of managing the forces, particularly the forces of peasantry and children who were sent to work or to be trained in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the purpose was to transform those children to be future personnel of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
All right. And prior to going to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, how many people had you managed? In other words, when you're out there in the jungle, how many people were under you where you were organizing and managing them?
Back then, my role was mainly to guard the offices. And then the guards under my supervision was no more than 30 members.
All right. Could you please tell us about Pong's level of education? Do you know whether he was an educated man?
Through my interaction with my colleagues, I learned that this person was a very outspoken guy, and he could communicate well with his colleagues.
Could he read and write?
When I first got to know him, he could read and write. He spoke Vietnamese as well.
All right. Now, can you please tell us what qualified you to have a position as the number 2 in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in light of the fact that you had only managed maybe up to 20 or 30 people, guards, had no real training or education in the field, and by your own admission, did not speak any languages? What qualified you for that position?
I do not understand your question, because my answer to you earlier was when I was in the jungle, but when you asked me concerning my work at Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I'm a bit confused now. 30 people whom I supervised at that time, I refer to the period when I was in the jungle. But since now, if I would like to know whether or not you are asking me about my work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or back when I was in the forest.
My apologies. The question was rather long. What qualifications did you have to be appointed to the position of Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
I did not have any necessary qualification to be appointed to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I actually protested at that time that I did not want to go to Ministry of Foreign Affairs because I did not have any necessary skills. But to my recollection, Mr. Ieng Sary had his personal affection on me, and he thought that probably I could do something on his behalf. I was the person whom he could rely on. So I think the only qualification I had was the honesty. I think that is my conclusion of his trust on me.
I thought you told us that it was Pong who told you to go there. What qualifications did Pong see in you to send you to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
In my personal understanding, perhaps Brother Ieng Sary, who was the person who proposed my name.
Thank you for telling us about your personal opinion, because that's something that I want to discuss a little bit. When you say to your understanding, what does that mean, to your understanding? Does that mean that you actually know, or are you drawing some sort of a conclusion?
By practice, the leaders were very humble. They did not demonstrate their pride. Respect must be earned. So, yeah.
Let me go back again. Maybe something was lost in translation. When you say to my understanding, does that mean that you actually have knowledge, or does that mean that you are speculating? Which of the two?
It was according to my analysis, and I knew it by myself.
All right, when you say your analysis and you knew it by yourself, does that mean that you have some concrete facts? Or is this something that you are speculating about?
I learned it by myself.
Do you think being Pol Pot's nephew helped at all in you getting that position?
It had nothing to do with that. That is not a correct conclusion.
Do you think that having a close working relationship with Pong over many, many years, that may have something to do with it?
It had nothing to do with that either.
And if I were to ask you about Chiem Pi Pun, do you know how it is that somehow he ended up at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well?
Chiem worked in one of the sections under my supervision, and he was in charge of peasantry. And he was supervising security matters and cultivation matter.
Let me go back and ask the question again. You've told us earlier that Pong was the one that appointed Chiem to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Do I have it right?
Yes, you are right.
And you just told us that he worked in security, on security matters. Is that right? He was your subordinate. You were his superior.
Yes, within the framework of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that was the case.
And you were also in charge of security matters.
Yes, I was.
And prior to coming to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you were working on security matters under Pong. I'll stop here. I see consuls on her feet. Maybe I'm doing something wrong.
Simplement, si
Could you please wait for your questions to be translated before asking the next question, or wait for the witness's answer to be interpreted before asking your next question, please?
My apologies. I understand the French is being translated from the English, which is being translated from the Khmer, so my apologies. I am going rather slow, considering my usual pace. So where were we? Prior to going to the MFA, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you were involved, you and Chiem were involved in security matters under the direct supervision of Pong. Is that right?
But
That is right.
Now, a little earlier this morning, I believe, to a question that was posed by one of the judges, when you were asked about your own biography and how it was important for you to have a clean biography. Do you recall that question that was posed to you?
I have forgotten it.
Well, as I recall, you seem to have indicated that because you had a clean biography, it was the masses that actually were responsible for you being in the position that you ultimately held at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Perhaps I got it wrong.
but
Yes, that is correct.
Now, I assume that that's based on some sort of an analysis. Would I be correct?
but
Yes, that is correct.
And can you please share with us what are the facts that you have that would suggest that an analysis was done of your personal biography that the masses were comfortable with having you appointed to that position?
I know that I had both weaknesses and strengths, but I had more strengths than weaknesses. My strength is that I do not interfere into other people's business, and I only want people to live with each other in harmony and enjoy prosperity and progress together. So in Ministry of Foreign Affairs, whichever department I supervise, people enjoy their day-to-day work.
All right. Now, you had indicated, well, over and over again, today, yesterday, the day before, you were posed some questions about Pong, about this period of time, 75 to 79. And you were asked repeatedly who was his superior. As you stand here today, are you telling us that despite all the years that you had spent with him, that you don't know his superior?
I do not know who the direct superior of Pong was. But what I knew was that Pong was the chairman of office age 70.
All right. Now you say that you knew that he was the chairman. What's the basis of your knowledge? Who told you this information?
Response. Because Pong hate the power, he could freely travel. He also provided, let's say, passes to people or the travel documents to people. And it was the people at the office told me that Pong was the chairman of that office.
And earlier today, when you said that he controlled or had the authority over a variety of ministries, what was the basis of that conclusion or that answer that you gave us?
ទី1
Response. First, Ieng Sari told me that when Pong arrived and whatever Pong needed, I needed to assist him in that regard. Secondly, the people who were working in the office, in particular in office K1, told me that Pong was the chairman of that office.
All right, let's start with the latter. Who are the people in K1 that told you that Pong was the chairman of the office? Name me some people.
Response. It was Mr. Lin who told me.
What about your uncle? Did you ever speak with Pol Pot about Pong's position?
Response. No, I never asked him about the role of Pong.
You've told us that Pong could come and go as he pleased, that he could bring people to the ministry and take them away as he pleased. What was the basis of his authority to do that?
Response. It was based on the points I indicated earlier. Firstly, that Ieng Sari told me to assist Ieng Sari in whatever ways he needed.
All right. What would have happened if you had resisted Pong when he came to take some people away?
Response. I did not have anything to object to him. When I met him, I asked why he need to take them away. Then he told me that the people would be transferred to this office or that office, and sometimes that the people would be sent to another location. So then I would let those people go. I would have no further objection.
All right. Now, but if you were in charge of security, why did you not take any measures to protect those people that were working within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response. No, I did not have the authority to refuse. When I saw him come, I just had to abide by his instruction.
Were you afraid of him?
Previously, when there was no arrest, no. But upon seeing the arrest, then I became to be afraid of him. I was thinking that when my turn would come.
Well, why would you be afraid? Why would you be afraid of Pong, knowing him all those years, and given the fact that you were Pol Pot's nephew, a very, very close associate of Pong's?
Response. It is difficult for me to explain to you. That was what happened at the time. He was in a higher position, so I had to abide by his instructions. As I indicated, he told me that people would be taken to this location or that location. So in my mind, I thought that people would be transferred to work elsewhere. But only later on, when I thought that those people were not sent for education, they were sent out and disappeared, and that caused my concern.
But you had this personal relationship with Pong. Why didn't you ask him what is going on? Why not have a discussion with him?
Response. As I indicated, I asked him some questions, and he told me that the people were sent elsewhere. He did not tell me that the people would be mistreated.
Why not go to your uncle and ask him what's going on?
Response. As I indicated, I had to be very certain before I could report. Otherwise, I would just cause trouble for myself. If I was clear that when I went to the base, I saw people being mistreated, when I saw with my own eyes, then of course I would have to report. In the case of my father, I reported to Ieng Sari, and Ieng Sari would report to the upper echelon. And then that law of the 7-level measure was created.
But let's talk about your fear at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. If you were afraid of Pong, why didn't you go to talk to Uncle Pol Pot about Pong, who was providing security for Uncle Pol Pot? Why not go and talk to him?
Response. I have to obey the hierarchical line. My uncle was not the one who was selfish and family-centered. I had to follow the line of the order.
Now, you indicated that Pong was in control of various ministries. What other ministries was he controlling other than the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response. As far as I know, he had influence in every ministry. He could travel wherever he pleased, even his group could travel anywhere.
And when you say he had influence and they could travel anywhere, does that mean that they had influence over those individuals who were responsible for the ministries?
Response. I cannot make that conclusion.
All right. Now, you indicated that there were times when Chiem would take people outside from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Do you recall saying that?
Response. Yes. At that time, when Jim took them away, I was not aware of it. Only upon his return, I asked him, and he said that people came to take those people from Jim, and he did not know where the people were taken to.
Or did those people that came in, did they identify themselves? Did they have any documentation, any authorization, anything concrete permitting them to just take people out of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Or was this just something that Chiem was telling you?
Response. Jim was under my supervision, so I could only ask him regarding this matter.
Well, did he ever identify the people? If you were in charge of security and he works for you, he's your subordinate, did you ever ask him who the people were, under what authority did they come and take people out? Did you ever ask that question?
Response. Are you referring to when he was going to Jim or to somebody else?
You said that you learned that Chiem had turned some people over from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to be taken away. And I'm asking you, since you were his supervisor, his superior, did you ask him to identify the individuals and the authority upon which they came and took those people away?
Response. I asked him, and he told me that those people were from the Pong's group.
And how did he know they were from Pong's group?
Response: It is very difficult to explain to you how, because they received the order from Pong. And how did they come? Of course, probably by motorbike.
Well, did they have any documentation from Pong? Or did they just represent themselves as being members of Pong's security or group? And based on that, they took people away.
Response: Because Jim knew that those people were the subordinates or the members of Pong's group.
Now, is this because Jim had worked with those people prior to taking up his position at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response: No. Jim did not have any major role or worked with Pong. However, sometimes when I was not present, Pong could call Jim and introduce those people to him. And that was the method Pong used at the time. And he would instruct Jim that to work or to cooperate with the people from his group.
And when you were present, would Pong come to you?
Response: I did not hear the question properly. Who was absent?
When you were present, and there was no need to go to Chiem, did Pong come to you?
Response: When people were taken away while I was present, I never saw Pong come to me.
When you were present, was anyone ever taken out of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Or are you telling us that when you were there, no one was taken away? Which of the two?
Response: When I was at the ministry, I can recall that there was people who came to pick up the people from the ministry. However, Pong telephoned me that if I see people coming to pick up the people, then I just would allow them to take those people. At that time, Pong used a landline phone to call me.
Okay, thank you. And just to make sure I'm clear, did Pong ever explain to you on whose authorization he was requesting these people to be transferred out of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response: No, he did not explain to me, and I did not ask him.
Why didn't you ask him? Or was that something that you were not supposed to do?
Response. I did not ask him. I did not ask him about the arrest of the people. I could even I found it difficult to ask him why people were taken away. However, sometimes I quietly asked other people where they were taken, and was told that they were taken for re-education or they were taken out to work on electricity due to their technical expertise. And that was all.
And did you believe what you were being told?
Response. When I could not grasp the general situation, at that time, the situation at the ministry was also not chaotic. So I did not know much about people who were taken away because I presumed that they were taken away based on what I was told. Only later on, for example, when I escorted guests to the rural areas and I found out about the hard living condition, then I presumed that it was not about being transferred to work elsewhere, but probably they were taken out and killed. That's how I knew at a later stage.
And did you ever ask Uncle Pol Pot, say after, either before or after 1979, about what happened to those people?
Response. No, I never asked him personally.
We have 10 minutes left, so I want to cover another point, and then we'll return to where we are on Monday. You've indicated to us, I believe it was 2 days ago, that Pol Pot, your uncle, could not take a decision alone. Do you recall that?
Response. Yes, I recall that.
And in fact, I believe you said that, generally speaking, decisions were taken collectively. Is that your understanding?
Response. This is part of my study and it is partly of my rational understanding.
But if I understand this correctly,
Counsel, please switch on your microphone.
as I understand, you never witnessed or were part of a decision-making process. Correct? Now, if we could... Thank you. Now, let's see what...
President, please wait for the witness to reply first before you move on. Witness response. Yes, that is correct.
Now, let's see, revisit a document that was shown to you, and it's D233/2, also is E3/415, and I'm going to be referring to Khmer page 00357530-31, French 00404555, English 00361013. Now, if, with the court's permission, I would like to show the document to the witness, and we can even display this part on the screen. We've seen it in the past. I believe I can cover this point within the next 5 minutes, Mr. President.
President, yes, you can do so. Court officer, could you locate the document and indicate the relevant portion for the examination of the witness?
Do you have it, sir?
Response, yes.
If we look at towards the end of the question, it says, so it meant that Pol Pot could not make a decision alone. At that time, as far as I knew, it was Pol Pot who was in charge of politics, and Brother Nuon Chea was in charge of the appointments. You recall being shown this part and giving you, and you in fact gave an answer in reference to this answer.
Response, yes, I can recall that.
Now, if we look further up, let's see how you got to that conclusion. You say here that you had some information that was provided to you concerning Hui Yun. Do you see that, sir, as part of your answer? Let me read it. I'll read part of it. When Hui Yun died, he, Pol Pot, was charged too, but it was unknown that for that reason Hui Yun had been killed. As far as I knew, when Hui Yun was alive, Mr. Pong always said that Pol Pot had asked to take Hui Yun to stay close to him, working as a secretary. But it was unknown why the center had not agreed. When Hui Yun disappeared, I thought that it would have been a reason. So, it meant that Pol Pot could not make a decision alone. Do you see that, sir?
Response. During that interview, that was after my defection to the government, and my only response was that if Pol Pot could make a decision by himself, how could Tam Mok could kill him? So I believe my response now enlightens your question.
Well, let's set aside Tamak and what happened to your uncle when he was arrested and put on trial. Let's focus on your answer. You say that Pong told you that Pol Pot wanted Hu Yun as his secretary. Is that correct? And that
Yes, that is correct.
somehow others or the center had intervened and prevented Hu Yun from becoming Pol Pot's secretary. Is that correct?
Response, yes. Counsel, please switch on your microphone.
Other than what Pong told you, do you have any other information that would substantiate that your uncle, Pol Pot, wanted Hu Yun as his secretary?
Response, no, there was nothing else. It became more serious
Did Pol Pot, your uncle, ever tell you that he wanted Hu Yun as his secretary and the center or others prevented him from having Hu Yun as his secretary?
response, no, he never told me. I only heard that through Pong.
So, if we look at your answer, when you say that this means that Pol Pot could not make a decision alone, sir, are you basing that answer on what we have here, on this statement, based on what Pong told you about Hu Yun and your uncle? Is that the sum total of information that you have in making the conclusion that your uncle could not make a decision alone?
Response, when I was told at that time, I did not make such a conclusion as that my uncle could not make a decision alone. However, only when I witnessed the later situation that the Mok opposed Pol Pot, then it was clear to me that although Pol Pot was a secretary of the party at the time, now they did not respect him, so he could not make a decision alone. And the second point is that collectivism had more weight than individual decision. So the minor opinion had to abide by the major opinion.
Just one question, Mr. President, and I know it's past 4. When you say that Tamak went against Pol Pot, your uncle, just now, are we not referring to the period of 1996-97. Is that not the period that you're referring to?
Response. I refer to that period, that is 96 and 97.
And that's right after Son Sen and his family were murdered, presumably by your uncle. Is that right?
Yes, it was.
I have no further questions at this time, Mr. President, and I'm very grateful for allowing me the 5 extra minutes.
The President, thank you. The time is now appropriate for the day adjournment. The court will resume on Monday, the 30th of April 2012, starting from 9 o'clock in the morning. Thank you, witness, for endeavoring to answer to many questions posed to you over the last few days. But due to the magnitude of the issue, the questioning has not yet been completed, so we will need one more day, that is Monday next week. So we would like to invite you to come to testify before this chamber on Monday next week. And the chamber wishes to also invite the duty counsel to accompany the witness during his testimony on Monday, just to give your expert advice on the witness concerning any question that may incriminate him. Security guards are instructed to bring the accused to the detention center and bring them back to this courtroom before 9 o'clock in the morning. The court is adjourned.